Jan, if
Riverside.
you'll take your phone and make sure you can see your face in it, because I'm looking at your ceiling right now. There you go. Hi,
Sorry.
everybody on Facebook and YouTube. And where else are we? Facebook and YouTube.
We are Facebook, YouTube, and Insta. And I am just getting us, and we are live on all platforms. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday and
Happy
welcome to
Friday.
Beyond the Steps, everyone. We are so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your patience as we're getting everybody logged on. I am waiting for us to come up on Facebook. And oh, yeah, that is a cute little thumbnail. Thank you, Megan. Megan did a great job on our thumbnail. I
Yeah, do
see
you
us
see us on
on,
Facebook?
I am, yep, we're on Facebook. We are everywhere. We
Good.
are
Well,
everywhere.
I'm Bree with Apolla here with my fabulous co-host Melissa McDaniel. We're chatting with Jan Dunn today about what is dance medicine and science and how is it impacting performance athletes, obviously specifically dancers, but how is it impacting performance athletes beyond that? This is the topic. We hear dance medicine and science a lot right now when we talk in the dance community. You hear those words. Sometimes I think we hear those words and we're just desensitized to what it actually is that we're talking about. So we've invited Jan to give us some clarity and shed some wonderful insight and wisdom. She has so much experience in the dance medicine and science field and has done a lot of the work that has brought us forward to this place today. So we're excited to dig in. Before we do, this is season 3 of Beyond the Steps. This is a Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern live, where we bring in a guest expert to address a topic and a variety of issues. We pick one question and we dive really deep with a guest expert to answer questions on topics like racism, gender inequities, dance medicine and science, psychology, nutrition, and more. This is really meant to educate. It's meant to lay a foundation. I think a lot of what's going on in the dance community and other performing and moving arts is that there's not a lot of regulation, there's not a lot of updated information, and we kind of get thrown into the cyclical pattern of repeating the ways we were taught. And when you know better, you do better. That's why we created this series. This season, we're going live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We've added YouTube to the mix. We're also turning Beyond the Steps into a podcast and into a blog. So we're going to be introducing that at the beginning of 2023. Stay tuned. In the meantime, Melissa, happy Friday. Welcome back.
Yes, happy Friday, everyone. Got a comment that we're getting a little bit of feedback on Instagram, so we will try to get that fixed as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much for that. But I do want to go ahead and introduce our amazing guest. Who I want to start by saying that Jan, who is our guest today, Jan Dunn, is going to be with us once a month, once this month, November and December, as a part of a series on dance medicine and science. We're going to do these series 3 times during our season with different guests, and we are so honored to have Jan be our first guest as part of the series. So
Thank
I'm going
you.
to introduce her so everybody knows who they are tuning in to listen to 3 times over the next few months. Jan is a dance educator and dance medicine specialist in Denver, Colorado, with a BS and master's. You are not in Denver anymore?
Savannah, Georgia, as of 2 weeks
She's
ago.
Oh,
in
yes, a
Savannah.
southern. Oh, she's
She
a
just
southerner
moved to
now.
Savannah.
Look
Yes,
at
Yeah.
you.
sorry.
Yes.
That's
So she is
okay. She was in Colorado for a long time.
she was in Colorado and now she has moved due south with us down here in the southeast. I'm in North Carolina. So in Savannah, Georgia, she's the co-founder and co-chair of the Bridge Dance Project, co-director of, oh, are you still with Denver Dance Medicine
I
Associates?
am. Yes.
Yes. Co-director of Denver Dance Medicine Associates and dance wellness editor for dancers.org. Previously, she was dance faculty and dance wellness coordinator at several universities, including University of Colorado Boulder, and Loyola Marymount University, and is currently working with Metro State University in Denver to develop a wellness program. She was involved in the founding of IADAMS, serving as president, executive director, and on the board of directors from 1990 to 2012. Wow, what an impact! 1990 to 2012. You
Mm-hmm.
are IADAMS.
Yes.
She was the chair of NDA Committee on Dance Medicine and Science, co-chair International Dance Medicine Conference in Taiwan in 2004, and co-founder of the Journal of Dance Medicine and Science. Jan, we are so honored to have you here. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being with us.
And she's also the co-chair of the Bridge Dance Project, which is doing fantastic things in the world of dance. We cannot forget to mention the Bridge Dance Project. Jan, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me, guys. And I'm excited to do 3 different sessions over the next few months and talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. Yeah, I have a long career, and I guess this comes with getting older.
A career, yeah.
It means that there's a lot of
No.
stuff up here in my head, as well as written material to share. And that's what my whole life has all been about, is education in the dance field. So fire away.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize we chose Dance Medicine and Science as our first quarterly series. That's kind of where, that's where we started at Apolla. That's where our heart is. That's where Melissa's lane is with TP Dance Creations. And it's just such an important, there is an important body of work that's being done to advance an industry that stays a little bit stuck. So I think it's a really great way to kick off our quarterly series. We're excited to have you. Everybody, thanks for joining. We have friends on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Please share this conversation and comment so we can get those answered for you throughout this next 45 minutes or so. Jan, let's get into it. Dance Medicine and Science is such a broad title that encompasses many different things, right? So to simplify, explain for everybody out there and us here, what does dance medicine and science refer to exactly, and how is it different than sports medicine research done in other athletics?
Okay, so dance medicine and science, let's separate it into dance medicine and science. So dance medicine is literally the care of injured dancers. Doctors, physiotherapists, athletic trainers, the people who work with dance injuries, and what they do and how they better their care and how to integrate that into a dance community. So that's what actual dance medicine is. Dance science is the research behind all of that. So it's very much more about, if there's a new method for doing a knee surgery, for example, what's the research behind that led to that new type of knee surgery? So they're kind of 2 distinct fields. Dance science tends to be more in academia, in university dance departments, where there are people all over the world doing this kind of research, and in medical institutions as well. And then obviously the dance medicine portion is in the clinic or backstage with the dancers, where a lot of times there's physio. Whoops, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Phone just went down.
Phone's flying, phone down.
That's how exciting we are.
You got a good view of my ceiling, I'm sure, for a second.
That's okay.
So that's kind of the basic difference between those 2 terms, but they have been joined together, lumped together for a very long time, going back to the very beginnings of the field, which was, going back all the way to the late 1970s and then in the 80s. And it very much, dance medicine and science is very much an outgrowth of sports medicine and science.
Yeah.
It's not connected to it in terms of research or other types of things, but it was an outgrowth of it. And by that, I mean that dance educators and medical people who were working, the medical people were working with sports people, obviously, for a long time, because sports medicine started way before that. But there were people in the dance education field who said, why can't we do this for dancers? Why can't we have this same kind of research and help and healthcare for dancers that has been going on in the last several decades for sports? So that's where the impetus came in the 1970s and then going into the 80s in terms of how all of this evolved. And there's many different, it kind of started in little pockets, mostly in the US, but not completely in the US, in England, in other countries in Europe. And then gradually more and more people started practicing and talking and connecting, and then various organizations such as IADAMS, International Association for Dance Medicine and Science, was formed. So it was a burgeoning, but it was very much from the grassroots on up. So I hope that helps.
It does help. And I think what I want to understand now is, why didn't we hear about this so much? You hear it now quite a bit. We didn't hear about the work being done for a long time, and it seemed to only affect people at the professional level or the collegiate level. Why is it so relevant to dancers, the dance community as a whole, and what is it providing now that was the missing link for so many years?
Well, it's relevant to dancers at any level, whether they're recreational dancers, university dancers, civic company dancers, small studio dancers, competition dancers. It's relevant because healthier dancers last longer. That's the bottom line. When dancers are healthy in every respect, and we're talking a whole rounded package, not just physical health, but nutritional health and mental health. When all of these things come together to create a healthier young, sorry, phone wants to go away again, a healthier young dancer, that healthier young dancer is going to have many more years of longevity and enjoying their field, whether again they're recreational or professional or student or teacher or what. So it's taken a lot of years, I think, because dance is especially ballet, is a centuries old tradition. And people don't like change in general. That's just a characteristic of the human human beings. We don't like change in general. So as
Do
you
you
said,
think dancers more so though? Because I feel like you look at other athletics and they have more available to them, I would say. So why was it so slow to start in dance?
I think it was so slow to start in dance, and I would need dance psychologists to maybe
Of course, yeah.
to weigh in on this, but dance is I never say this word right, hierarchical. I think that's the right pronunciation. Um, Society, dancers learn from their teachers, and in general, there's no talk back. Whatever the teacher says is the word of, is the word in capital
It's
letters.
the word, yeah.
And so dancers are taught not to question, just to do whatever teacher says. And that particular tradition goes back centuries. And one of the things that is happening in the dance medicine world, or dance science world, in this whole field in general, is more empowerment to dancers. There is a new book that is not actually out yet, but it was edited and put together by Dr. Jeff Russell, who is on the BDP board of directors and is a major force in the dance medicine.
We love Dr. Russell. We love ourselves some Dr. Russell.
Everybody loves Dr. Russell. He's amazing. But one of the things that particular book, he put together the book with a lot of different authors, myself just being one of many, to talk about different aspects. And it's actually going to be used as I believe, a college textbook.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful.
It talks a lot about empowerment and giving the authority to dancers to speak up for themselves, and how this whole framework of the teacher's word as excuse me, the word of God, they don't question it at all. How that tradition, which has been going on for centuries in the dance world, how that needs to be looked at, and dancers today need to really empower themselves to take more action to better their physical and mental health condition. But I think there's many reasons why it's taken so long. I am not a sports medicine person. I don't know that much about the sports medicine and science field. So I don't know if that same mentality of teacher's word is all encompassing. You never question teacher's word. I don't really know if that happens in the sports field at all. I don't know if one of you have that knowledge or can say anything.
I don't know. I think it happens, but I think there's organizations in place to check those coaches. And I think that's the difference between dance and everything else, is that there are checks and balances in place for coaches and authority figures and other and other athletics and other movements that just aren't,
Yeah.
because dance has no governing body and there's no standardization, there's nobody doing the checking, right?
Exactly.
It virtually goes unchecked. And
Right.
Nicole D, thank you for your comment on Instagram. We have been trained to dance through the pain. Absolutely, we have. It's almost like a badge of honor, if you can do it, right?
Exactly.
But I wonder now, just based on what you just said, it is hierarchical, and it is we listen, and it is the word, it's the gospel when dance teachers speak. But does that mean that we don't believe that anymore, or does it just mean that people are getting more educated and are
I think,
prioritizing their health and wellness for the first time?
yeah, I think it's slowly changing, that people are getting more able to, people meaning young dancers, are getting more able to speak up for themselves and to take care of their own health care better than they were a number of years ago. And in addition to that, dance teachers are slowly, and I want to emphasize the word slowly in capital letters,
Yeah.
becoming more well educated about all of these different factors that can impact young dancers. Um, it's still a uphill battle, let's put it that way. So for example, in the what I call kind of the traditional dance medicine and science world, which encompasses IADAMS, the dance medicine organization, and the professional dance companies that have teams of medical people, the ballet companies, the large ones that have a lot of services that aren't available to the local studio dancer. Um, all of those people um, have access to this kind of information, and that has changed a lot in the last 30 years, as well as university dance. One small quick story at the university dance level, an organization of university dance chairs that I was once part of a number of years ago. This is going back to the early 1990s. And at one of those, this is when dance medicine was first starting to form, really, and IADAMS, the dance medicine organization, was first formed, and I was involved in that. And I went to this conference of university dance chairs, and I started talking about how this information should be part of a dancer's education, in this case at the university level. And I literally had people in that meeting go, "What do we need that for? We don't need that. We're fine. We've been fine for 300 years, whatever." And, I was not in a position to offer much in the
Right.
way of a rebuttal. But so here we are 30 years later, and at least in the US, I can't say all by any means, but a huge majority of university dance departments have courses in anatomy, in I'm going to say injury prevention, and I want to say quickly that's not a term that we're
That's not a
using
term
anymore.
anymore, right?
Now we're saying injury risk reduction, because you cannot prevent
Yeah.
injuries at all. So people are slowly starting to transition out of that. But the point is that those courses didn't exist 30 years ago. And now, and as I said, I was kind of laughed out of the room when I suggested that dancers needed to have this kind of information. And now it's just taken for granted that these courses are
Yeah.
taught at university level. And with the Bridge Dance Project, which is specifically geared to competition dancers, to young competition dancers. And I'm going back to our first board meeting that we
Uh-huh.
had 3 years ago. And Casey Cope Jones, your partner and mine, who is one of the founders of the Bridge, along with me, she sat there at our board meeting, and she told everybody there, I mean, all the board members, it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be a long time before this information is listened to and really integrated. And we all knew that.
Yeah.
And so I think it just takes, if we're all still here in 30 years, you guys will be, I won't, but you all will be. I'm guessing you'll see the same kind of progress that I saw in quote the more or less regular dance field,
Yeah.
ballet, modern.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
I hope so.
And
I really
I
do.
I hope so too.
It really is. It really is slow. For those of you who are just joining us, this is Beyond the Steps. We're here every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And today we're chatting with Jan Dunn about dance, medicine, and science. What is it, and how is it impacting dancers specifically? But also can have some impact on other performance athletes who are out there. We just talked about the difference between dance, medicine, and science, and why it's moving so slowly, and our just frustration about why is it going so slowly? Hoping that it moves forward. Yes, Jan, I see
No,
your
I was
hand
going to
raised.
say, no, yeah, we're talking about how it's moving slowly, but at the same time, look at this, what you guys are doing, okay? Look at all the different sites that are out there now, um, valuable sites. And then we do want to address the question of what about if you're not sure how valuable a site is, and we can
Mm-hmm.
offer some suggestions on that.
Yeah.
But but none of this existed 10 years ago,
Yeah.
Right.
all
It's
the
true.
stuff that we're talking about. So
Yes.
that's a huge positive, and social media as we know it now didn't exist 10 years ago.
Right.
So all of
Yeah.
this information that you all and other people are able to get out there on the web, on social media, it's phenomenal because that just helps to increase the speed with which this information will gradually be introduced.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
I want to make sure that you are sharing this episode. To Jan's point, we are creating these resources now. It's happening now, and the more that we share it, the more the information will be more quickly disseminated, and we will experience change a lot faster. So make sure you are sharing now that we have social media in that capacity.
That's
I
right.
want to talk about those who on Instagram, those who do not have doctors on their staff, trying to find a doctor who understands dance and how it helps them is very difficult. And I'm hopeful to hear that it might be changing. That is so very true. I mean, I remember having injuries back in the olden days when I was dancing, and you couldn't find a doctor that specialized in dance here in the Charlotte area. So we really are people like Jan and Dr. Russell and everybody who's contributing to this field is going to help us get there and form that network of professionals that we can trust. With
Do you want me to say anything quickly about what you just said? Because
Sure.
somebody just said, "How do we find people?" Is that correct?
Yes.
Um, yeah, there are actually resources now for dancers in, Timbuktu, Idaho. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
to find help if necessary. Um, IADAMS, the Dance Medicine Organization, now has a directory of
Okay.
healthcare providers worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors for Dancers online is a phenomenal site to try to find help wherever you are. And even just people like me, individual people working in the field who know people all over the country. My email's out there. People can email me anytime they want and say, I live in Timbuktu, Idaho, and I need a dance medicine
Mm-hmm.
person. Who can
Right.
you recommend? So there are ways to find good people now, and that didn't exist 5 years ago either.
Right. So those directories are out there. We're gonna drop those in the chat here so that you can access those and probably talk about them a little bit later near the end of the show. I wanna talk about some of the struggles because we kind of segued into that. One struggle is finding professionals who have a specialization in dance that can really help us as
Mhm.
dancers. I would imagine, and I'm coming. You can definitely come with any that you have, but I think another one is kind of changing that mindset of another struggle of dancers, changing that mindset of dancing through the pain. Like you have to push through. I feel like that's a big challenge for us as
Yeah.
dancers. Do you think that mind shift is happening for us, and how do we I feel like it's a very toxic trait of ours as dancers. How do we get rid of
Yeah.
that?
It's it again, I think it's just the education coming up from the bottom, which is what all of us are about. We're
Mm,
trying to influence teachers, dancers, parents. Parents are a huge part of this, especially with young
mm-hmm.
dancers. Um, about the fact that no, your kids shouldn't be dancing with pain. And we just do it through all of these modalities that we're all talking about, that you're doing it through social media postings, seminars. The Bridge Dance Project. Part of what the Bridge Dance Project is all about is local chapters. We have about 30 in different places all over the U.S. and a few outside the U.S. And the people who are involved in those chapters come from both the medical field, who actually might be physical therapists or doctors who work with dancers, and the competition dance field, teachers in particular. And those chapters put on seminars that are open, that are free. Everything we do is free, and are open to teachers, dancers, parents, to come and learn more about whatever it is they're talking about. So, for example, the Atlanta chapter has put on several great seminars. The Los Angeles chapter has. The Houston chapter has. So those are kind of the sorts of formats for getting this information out there. And again, I know it's going to be a long haul. It's going to take a long time, but there are ways for people to be aware of it.
Can I talk about parents for a second? In this, you talked about the kind of the bottom up philosophy, and you would think because they are the people with the dollars that would work. However, we have had great challenge. I feel like in doing this work and me being directly involved with parents on a day to day basis, still being in the studio space, of getting them to quote unquote vote with their dollars. They will not withdraw their support from organizations that are doing harm to young competitive dancers or studios who are supporting those organizations who are doing harm to young dancers. How in the world?
Is Melissa, is it because they don't know what's going on because there's a lot of speculation, but not a lot of actual fact and quote unquote evidence? Or is it because they don't want to believe it because it's the pop they want to keep up with the Joneses, for lack of a better term?
I think what you just said
Yeah.
is unfortunately true. Um, um, my daughter never wanted to dance, so I never dealt with her going into any field like that. And part of me was kind of grateful because I knew all the problems that could be.
Word.
Yeah.
Word. I'm like, everybody's like, are you happy or you want your daughter to dance? Are you happy she's not dancing? I'm like, I don't know if I
Yes.
want. I don't know yet. I'm okay with her not dancing right now.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I was okay. She grew up around dance. She saw
Yeah.
ballet, from the time she was 2 years old. But she never expressed, and it had nothing to do with me influencing her one way or the other.
Right.
She never expressed a desire to dance, and I was kind of grateful along the way for that.
Yeah.
But I think what you said, Bree, about keeping up with the Joneses, and especially, you are. I don't know what kind of teaching environment you work in, Melissa. What kind of teaching environment do you work in?
I'm at a competitive studio, so I'm the
Okay,
competition director.
so both of you are very familiar with competitive dance.
Yes.
So that's what I was asking. So again, I'm speaking sort of off the top of my hat because, as you both know, that is not my background. My background in dance is concert dance and academic dance, and everything I have learned about competition dance has been through the graces of people like Bree and Casey and everybody I've been in contact with through the Bridge the last 3 years. But
Yeah.
I think part of it is, well, Mary Jones's daughter just won an award for blah blah blah, and I want my daughter to win that award. And so, I mean, you all have to tell me if that's a correct attitude, but I think that
Yes.
keeping up with the Joneses thing that you just said is part of it, and not really realizing, parents not really realizing what can happen physically to your kid. I mean, we talk about what Apolla has had on the website with Mia Michaels talking about the 16-year-old with a double hip replacement.
It's very real. Yeah.
Yeah, and so many people don't even understand that. And I had one doctor, a long-time dance medicine doctor, who was very well known in the field, but not familiar with competition dance. And when I made that comment to him, he went, "Oh no, you must mean 60-year-old." And I went, "No,
No, I meant
16."
16. Yeah.
And he was like, unbelievable. So it's a combination of so many different factors. Um,
It is. And it's also in order for the parents to have this information, you really have to bring them into the fold. They are a huge part of the solution in voting with their dollars. You have to bring them into the fold and you have to share things with them. But I also think there's a really fine line in dance where um, uh, educators try to keep parents out of the equation as much as possible because they don't want to deal with the complaining. They don't want to deal with everything that comes with that. And so I feel like it's this really odd dichotomy of like the parents need to be part of the process and they need to help make the decisions, but in order to do that they need the and to give them the information means you have to bring them in and you have to share with the parents and you have to, and those things do not work together sometimes. So
Yes.
I think that's also something we have to examine. And we've been saying that on the show for a couple years now is, yes, you can have your boundaries with the parents and what they are and are not allowed to do. But at the end of the day, it really benefits everybody if you can figure out how to make them part of the process.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know how to. You all might have a better grip on how to get parents more involved. I honestly don't know.
I think parents get very involved. It's a matter
No,
of
I mean,
do you want them to be, right?
well, yeah, but involved in the positive ways that we're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah, yeah.
as far as their daughter's dancer's house. I mean, I knew one small example of how we can all give a million examples. I'm sorry, but I remember this one of a mother. She was an orthopedic surgeon, and her dancing daughter had an ankle injury that she ignored and just told her to keep dancing on it. And she was an orthopedic surgeon, and the kid ended up having serious issues. And the physical therapist who finally saw her said, "You can't keep dancing. You got to stop and let this thing rest." So, yeah, it's a big issue.
It's hard. It's hard. We're going to keep the conversation going. We're chatting with Jan Dunn today, who's the co-founder and co-chair of the Bridge Dance Project. And among many other things, she's a long line of experience in the dance medicine and science field and has kind of evolved our community as far as it has. She's been instrumental in that. So we're excited to have Jan with us today. This is season 3 of Beyond the Steps. I'm Bree Zabrowski here with my fabulous co-host and friend, Melissa McDaniel. And we're talking today to Jan about what is dance medicine and science and how is it impacting dance athletes and performance athletes today. Jan, today more than ever, we are inundated with information. We've talked about the impact of social media and how instrumental, it's kind of that double-edged sword, right? And it can be confusing and it can be hard for parents and dancers and teachers and frankly frustrating because we don't have a lot of time, right? To know which organizations to listen to, if the info you're getting is credible, which ones are legit and which ones are not. It can also be a huge turnoff to listen to, and you and I have talked about this at length over the years. It can be it's frustrating for me. I don't have the science medical background. I understand anatomy very well, obviously, and I can follow along, but the science medical jargon, I don't have patience for it. I'm like, shoot it to me straight, give it to me direct. What are you talking do, right? But a lot of time dance medicine and science, we get so technical that it can be a turnoff and people just stop listening, which is I think part of the problem in terms of infiltrating commercial and competitive dance, right? We talked about that. So what are your recommendations for parents and educators who want to stay up to date on the research being done in dance medicine and science and want to share that information provided by the professionals, but maybe don't have all that much time and patience to listen, to sort through and filter through all the jargon?
Yeah, I think listening, number one, I'm going to do a pitch for the Bridge Dance Project again. Sorry.
Yeah.
One of the things that we were founded on, one of our principles is talking to dancers, teachers, and parents in everyday language and everyday dance language. So in other words, if you're going to talk about External rotation of the hip. Well, a lot of dancers don't have a clue what that means. That's turnout, guys. That's all that is. It means turnout. So using dance language, everyday language, and not necessarily scientific language, we can educate as we talk. If you go to the website fordancers.org, which is a website that has been run out of a wonderful teacher in Chicago since 2010, something like that. And she found out about dance medicine and science information years ago and asked me to write one article just explaining what it was, literally. And I did. And the response from her readership, which is nationwide, was so positive, like, oh wow, I want to learn more about this. And it's primarily a ballet site, but we started an actual portion of her website which is solely for dance medicine and science. So over the many years that we've had that, we've written so many articles, myself and many other people. I've had many people do articles for that website. And the number one criteria is you have to write in everyday language. You cannot write in scientific language. So and yes, we're about education. So if you're going to use the term external rotation of the hip, fine. But then you got to put next to it, that means turnout.
Right.
So that everybody knows what you're talking about, but you're educating them anatomically at the same time. The other thing that is kind of concerning, Brie, from what you said about how do I know what information is good and what can I look at, and
there's a lot of resources out there now, and there's a lot of groups. The thing about dance is wonderful and frustrating at the same time is there's a lot of groups that are trying to accomplish the same thing, and they're working independently of each other, right? And so how do you know which ones are?
Well, okay, so I'm going to give you a few guidelines, and this actually is also on the website for fordancers.org, and it's actually on our BDP website now too. And it's kind of along the lines of what you're talking about, because there's so much misinformation on the web. So a number of years ago, this goes back to 2015-16, when Robin Kish, who is now co-chair of the Bridge along with myself and Casey. Robin is a longtime dance medicine and science person, researcher, university faculty at Chapman University in California, Southern California. She was on the advisory board for fordancers.org, the medical advisory board we had with these articles. And she said, I'm really getting concerned, because that's when social media and the net was really starting to explode with this information. And she said, I'm really concerned because we see so much information out there that is just not good and even harmful. So the board, or the advisory board for fordancers.org, put together a list of criteria that one should look at if you're going to look at information online and see if this is information you want yourself to have, you want your dancers to have, you want your teachers to have, or your parents to have. Can I go through it very quickly?
Please do.
Absolutely.
Because you can find this on BDP website and fordancers.org. But some of these, the kinds of questions that you should ask. She said, we are sharing 4 key points with you to help you evaluate websites and online information. Is the author a dancer, a former dancer, or at the very least, have they spent years learning about the art if they're not a dancer themselves? That's crucial. You don't want somebody who doesn't know anything about dance talking about dance. Number 2, do they provide a clear bio of their qualifications and degrees, such as MD, PhD, MS, or in a related field, their experience and qualification in the field? I have seen sites online that say they are dance medicine websites that are written by Susie Jones with no qualifications or degrees or background or anything after her name, telling you who she is and what gives her the right to say these kinds of things. Number 3, do they provide clear references and sources for their information, indicating that they are current with the latest dance medicine and science research, and they're not claiming to be the sole expert on whatever it is they're talking about? Again, I've seen a lot of sites where Susie Jones is talking about how she knows what it is you should be doing, but not giving any kind of background information or criteria. And then the last point that our board came up with, if a program or something else is being sold on the site, if they're asking for your money, is it supported with external resources and credentials? So those kinds of guidelines, and those guidelines can all be found, as I said, on fordancers.org, as well as on the Bridge Dance Project site. But those are just some basic guidelines of when you're out there as a parent or a teacher or an older dancer looking to try to find information, to kind of filter through what's out there and see what's the best thing that you should be looking at, not just anybody's information.
Yeah, and it just circle back to what you said, Jan. Like I love that you said like dance medicine and science professionals. I know the work being done and the passion that is behind all of that. I've met so many of you, and
Mhm.
the passion you all have for this industry is amazing, and we're so lucky for it. But I would encourage any dance medicine and science professionals out there to like know your audience, know who you're talking to, especially
Mhm.
because I think there's so much work being done to breach that commercial competitive space right now. And those are the kids and the families that really, really need this information and this work. Edit yourself, audit yourself, and figure out how to deliver
Mhm.
that information short, sweet, to the point, and talk
Mhm.
about it in layman's terms so that it does reach the end target and it does have an
Yeah.
impact, because that's the way we're going to do it. It's not going to be the same way you talk to college dance programs or professional dancers. It's gonna sound different, it's gonna look different, and that's really, really important.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love my favorite one is they should not be claiming to be the sole
Yeah.
source of this information.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that in this social media age and where we are now, people say, I am the expert, I am the one, I am the person that you need to talk to. It's the me generation, and that can be very dangerous. I
That's
think that
right.
people who are skilled and knowledgeable are very quick to say, you can check behind me with a second opinion or
yeah,
another person, or you
yeah.
can check my facts.
Yeah.
So you got to be very, very, very careful.
You have to be
Careful.
very discriminating in what you're looking at
Yeah.
online. Very much
Yeah.
so.
Absolutely.
And thank you for
Absolutely.
providing those. I think that's really helpful. That's a really quick checklist and an easy checklist to remember.
Yeah.
Jan, I know we're reaching sort of the end of our time here. So before we leave, I think it's really important to talk about, we have a lot of listeners and people watching from all areas of the dance community and even beyond that. Talk a little bit about why dance medicine and science education is so important at each of these levels. Quickly, I'm going to say one, and then you give me a quick reason why they need to be paying attention. Studio and recreational dance programs.
Again, I think it goes back to what we said at the very beginning, Bree. Um, Healthier dancers dance longer. It doesn't matter what level you're dancing at, whether you're professional, recreational, whether you're a teacher. Anybody who dances and loves dancing wants to do it as long as possible. And dance medicine and science is there to help you dance longer, healthier. That's the bottom line, I think, that answers that question.
Thank you. Competitive dance.
Same thing.
But
Competitive. Okay, let's get a little
let's
commercial here.
expand. Yeah, yeah,
Um, Healthier dancers win more.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
because they can compete longer, stronger, healthier,
Mm-hmm.
without injuries, and they're going to win more.
yeah.
And
Love
that
that.
gets into financial issues that are positive for studio owners.
Mm-hmm.
What about school teams where you're like, they're doing this more for the social aspect. They love to dance, but it's not like, it's not their whole world. They have that social team atmosphere and that vibe, that camaraderie. But they're saying to you, well, this isn't going to be my whole life. Why does it matter? Why is it important for them?
Well, again, because they like what, even if they're going to do it for 2 or 3 or 4 years while they're in high school or college, they love it. They enjoy it for all the reasons that you just mentioned: social interaction. They want to do it as long as they can in a
Mhm.
healthy manner. Terry Rao is head of the
Yes.
National Dance Coaches Association, and she is on our BDP board. And she could speak at great lengths about what you just
She
mentioned.
has. She's been
I'm,
on the
Yeah,
show
she's been on the
too.
show.
She's
Yes.
I'm
she's
sure.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's great. And so it's the same thing. You just want to do what dancers do what they do because they love it. Have you ever seen the Merce Cunningham phrase? I'm going to probably paraphrase it very badly, but it has something to do with dancers are people who are drawn to the flame and are consumed by it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't just hover on the outside of the flame. We go to the flame and we are consumed by it. And anybody who dances has that inner love of what they're doing. So whatever you're doing, school team, competitive, social, recreational, you do it because you love it. And that's why we're all here. We just love what we do and we don't want to stop.
Well, and to tack on too, like obviously that doesn't, we nobody should ever have to sacrifice their body or pain or, the quality of the rest of their life for something they enjoy doing, right? Like we can have both. We have now the tools and the resources, the education available to us to make better choices and do better in the classroom and for recovery, right? So we're not feeling like the Tin Man when we're in our 40s, right? So that's the bottom line there. But I think that your answer is the same for all of the above, which is do what you love longer. And I love that.
Let me just say one thing based on what you just said a second ago,
sure.
Because it really speaks to me at this particular point in my life. I'm in my 70s, and I have a lot of not great body issues that come from dance because none of this information existed when I was growing up. I came from a very traditional ballet studio where the teacher's word was law and all of that stuff that we talked about. So I did have injuries when I was very young that have haunted me for many, many years and still do. And so people who know me in my life now, I might get teary, I'm sorry. They have said, knowing everything that you know now, meaning about dance medicine and everything else, with your current body that has some aches and pains, would you have done it any differently? No.
Yeah.
I never would have done it any differently, regardless of what happens now in this body.
Yeah.
Because that's who we are. We just love it.
Right.
Sorry.
Do you think if there was a way to still do it that same way, but have better resources available, that would have been helpful though?
Oh, yes. One of the reasons I went into this whole field and I started getting involved in it in my early 30s and 40s was because the information wasn't there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I already had one or two serious injuries at that point. And I just felt this was so not necessary. And I luckily was in the right place at the right time with the best people who were in the formative years of dance medicine and science. It would have helped me enormously if I had known it way back when.
The blessing is that it's helping dancers now who are just like you and in the spot that you were in. Those of you who are just joining us, we're about to wrap up, but please go back and watch this full episode with Jan Dunn. It has been absolutely amazing and insightful. You can find those recordings on Facebook at Apolla Performance, on Instagram at TP Dance Creations, on Apolla at TP Dance Creations, on YouTube at TP Dance Creations and Apolla Performance. There is no excuse whatsoever for you not to watch this episode. We have put it everywhere humanly possible. You can also sign up to get the episodes in your inbox using the link that we're about to put on Facebook and Instagram. What? That's amazing. There's no excuse for you not to watch this full episode. So please go do it. I think it's time to go to homework, and I think Bree has homework that she wants to suggest.
Well, I have homework, but before I have homework, I'm going to give it to Jan. Jan, we like to give a task for everybody that's watching to just do one thing from now until next week to make just a small baby step towards progress. So what's one thing you want to challenge everybody watching or listening, whether it's now or later? What do you want them to do to make progress and to learn more?
We've mentioned a number of different websites and things out there that people can learn information. We've mentioned the Bridge Dance Project. We've mentioned iAdams. We've mentioned Doctors for Dancers. We've mentioned fordancers.org. go to one of those or go to all of them and read something, learn something, watch something. There's so much information out there. Just pick one thing to do between now and next week.
Love it.
Awesome.
And I am going to challenge to watch all of our Beyond the Steps episodes from season 1 and 2. There is so much fantastic content. This is a great time to catch up on Beyond the Steps as we're just kicking off season 3. So you can see all of those episodes on our YouTube playlist or on our website or on Facebook videos, as Melissa already pointed out. I also want to challenge you to take our Steps Initiative course. It is free. Yes, free. It is a five-part course series that's going to tackle those topics that we talked about earlier, from racism, gender inequity, sex abuse and prevention, dance, medicine and science, nutrition, psychology, and a little bit more, but it's broken up into 5 parts. You can take it in your own pace, and it is completely free. Look at it as professional development. Look at it as making your environment a safer, happier, healthier space for dancers, because that's what we all deserve at the end of the day. We also want to challenge you to check out our friends at YPAD. That's Youth Protection Advocates in Dance, ypad.org. We are giving you 25% off a certification course for them by using the code Apolla25. We will plug that in the chat on each of the platforms, so you have that. But our friends at YPAD are always doing great work to keep kids happy, healthy, safe, and dance. They certify educators and studio owners as well, so you can't lose. Check them out. Jan, how can people find you, get in touch with you if they have questions for you? Tell them the best way to get a hold of you.
Okay. The best way to get a hold of me is probably email. I believe my email, I think, is on the BDP site. If not, I'm going to give it to everybody right here because I'm fine to share it. It's JD, like my name, Jan Dunn, JD, and then the word DanMed, DANMED, JDDANMED at AOL.com. JDDanMed at AOL.com. And I'm happy to answer questions, connect you with people. One of my favorite things to do is networking, and I know a lot of people. So
you really do. You're like an encyclopedia of people. You know so many people.
Right. Exactly.
Jan is a wealth of knowledge. So we're just, Jan, I just want to say again how honored we are to have you. Just the work that you've done for our industry. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you continue to do and for taking time to just share everything in your brain, because we appreciate that. Not everything, but a small piece of what's in your brain.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And I am so grateful to you guys for doing this, and the people that you work with. You are an inspiration to me, believe me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We are so very happy that you have decided to spend your Friday afternoon with us listening to this information. And please share. Once again, like Bree said, we're going to have a podcast. We're going to have a blog. Please stay tuned for all of that stuff. Then there'll be really no reason that you cannot watch an episode. You can listen, you can read, you can watch. It's all there. Our next show, next Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're going to be talking about to a licensed therapist about how studio owners, teachers, coaches, parents can help students deal with grief and loss when there is a loss in their studio community. So that's a very important conversation that we're having, particularly here in October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, where so many people are being impacted by breast cancer and other forms of cancer that may be actually impacting the students and the teachers in their community. So please tune in with us next week for that. Share this episode. I told you where you can get them all, so please go there, share. And until next time, continue your journey beyond the steps. We will see you next Friday.